Well, greetings and welcome to another edition of the Has-Been podcast. I'm your host, the resident has-been, and go Bears. Indiana Bears, by the way. That's what we're looking for. Closer drive. Maybe it wouldn't be as cold. Well, the stadium would be indoors too once they build it, wherever they build it. Anyway, I digress. But I've been blessed this year, I will just say, from a football watching standpoint. Um, those that follow the Bears, NFL, they've had a lot of remarkable finishes to their games. Um, the ones in Soldier Field, I was fortunate enough to be at the one in Las Vegas when they blocked the field goal. I was fortunate enough to be in Cincinnati when they won that game. I tell people my new freedom of movement, which I'm semi-retired, therefore the label has been. But I'm a full-time has been. But anyway, freedom of movement allows me to move around and do what I want when I want. So Vegas, Cincinnati, other places I've been, but just been blessed to watch a lot of really exciting finishes in football, even high school football. I don't know if anybody remembers. Uh, in October, there was a high school game in Indiana between Alexandria and Eastbrook that ended up going viral uh, because of obviously how it finished. I would recommend that you Google it. I'm not going to get into all the details, but it ended up going across the world. And um, Pat McAfee talked about it on his ESPN show, even though I'm not a fan of what he does and how he does it. But anyway, I witnessed that. I'm old enough to value being at a game to watch it instead of streaming it or TV. If there's an opportunity to be there and watch something, I try to do it. That's all sports, not just football. But anyway, just as we kick off this week's uh, podcast, video cast, whatever you want to call it, show, we will not have Red Panda on. She performed um, Wednesday night at Mackey Arena to the delight of the 100th consecutive sellout crowd. Um, now, I was told she had never appeared at Mackey Arena, or at least she hadn't appeared in the last 15 years. Someone said, well, maybe I saw her there a long time ago. She has performed at the Big Ten tournaments throughout the years, either in Chicago or Indianapolis. And she showed up at NBA arenas. Anyway, she's the most sought after, most popular halftime act. Uh, NBA, WNBA, college basketball. She even was at an NFL game this year. So she is the GOAT, and there's no way around it. But she did her balancing of the bowls and flipping of the bowls and riding the unicycle. So it was tremendous, and the crowd appreciated it and embraced her. And who knows, maybe spurred Purdue to a victory over Iowa, and that's where we'll start. We'll start with men's basketball, and now they've won 8 in a row after beating Iowa on Wednesday. Coming back, they were down at halftime. First game they've won when they've trailed at halftime. Now they only trailed in one other game, um, and they were undefeated when they led at halftime. But it's how they won that game is to me pretty simple. They ramped up their defense. Braden Smith carried the load on both ends of the floor. He didn't score in the first half, had 16 in the second half. He got them going after they trailed by 9 early in the second half when they had some careless turnovers. But he got them going with a couple pull-up jumpers, got kind of everybody back in the game. Then the defense kind of ramped up with Jakari Harris getting a couple steals, um, Trey Kaufman-Renn getting a steal, Braden Smith getting a steal. 3 of those steals led directly to baskets, and all of a sudden Purdue's right in the thick of things. Iowa had come back, taking a lead a couple times, but then Jakari Harris hit a three-pointer to put them up for good, like 62-61. And from there, Purdue Purdue closed it out. Really, I think it was a good game for Purdue to have during this winning streak. They've had some lopsided wins, uh, some good road wins too, but this one they had to really buckle down and get it done because things were not clicking or going as they have been. I was a really good team. They've lost three in a row now, but um, they had some guys hit some shots, perimeter shots that normally don't hit perimeter shots. That put Purdue in a bit of a hole. Braden Smith wasn't doing Braden Smith things in the first half, even though Purdue was only down by three. Um, they needed to raise uh, their level of play in the second half, and they did that. And the bench was tremendous again. I think the sixth time in the last eight games they've scored. They've combined for 20 points off the bench. So in the Iowa game, you're looking at Daniel Jacobson, 9 rebounds, I think seven in the first half. Uh, Jack Benner, two three-pointers in the first half because Trey Kaufman-Renn gets in foul trouble. Jacobson's in the game more because Oscar Clough gets in foul trouble. Omer Mayer hits a three from the deep corner. And I was told this stat last night that a lot of analytics in the sports world nowadays, but where he hit his three-pointer um, against Iowa in the first half in the deep corner, right in front of Iowa's bench, he is now 7 for 9 from three-point range from that spot, from the corner spot. So that's his sweet spot. And if I know that, or we know that, then the other teams know that as well. But Ben McCollum, the Iowa coach, praised Mayer for his ability to get Purdue um, into its offense while Braden was on the bench. He called them hockey assist, which is like the pass before the pass. Mayer didn't have any assists, but he had the pass that led to the pass that led to the assist. And Purdue had 20 assists, only 9 turnovers. So they were they were efficient on offense enough to produce offense there in the second half to kind of get past the Hawkeyes. So the bench played well. The defense picked it up in the second half. Um, Bennett Sturts, the point guard, was billed as a Braden Smith, Bennett Sturts kind of matchup type of thing. The first half, wasn't that way, you know, because Purdue was in foul trouble to some extent, and Sturts had picked up two fouls, one early, and well, actually two early. He sat out for like 2 minutes and then came back in. I mean, the guy's experienced enough to know how to play with two fouls, similar to Purdue. Painter could have left Clough and Kaufman-Renn in, but uh, the way the bench has been playing recently, I think you roll that dice and you let your bench players kind of fill the gap through the end of the first half, and then you've got two guys ready to go. And they did. They combined for 22 points. This was kind of a game where you look at the stat sheet and you go by position, like you combine like Purdue's fours and fives, what they did. You combine Mayer and Smith, what they did. Harris and Cox, they kind of sub for each other. They play the kind of same position. Both bring a defensive element. Both can score. CJ Cox had a big three in the corner in front of the Purdue bench late in the game to kind of push that lead out. So if you go through the stats and look at the combined points of the positions, then you've got a really good idea of how this team kind of operates and how it can operate. Um, and there's not, at least through the first half of the season, there doesn't seem to be much of a drop off when you go from starter to bench. Now they've had some games where the bench hasn't produced 20 points or 10 points. Sometimes your starters are not in foul trouble and they're carrying the heavy load. But these are the things that happen when you get tournament situations where foul trouble, you know, somebody's dinged up or whatever. You need your bench to come through. And Purdue has proven that its bench is going to be there for them. throughout the rest of the season as they march toward, you know, maybe another Big Ten championship and at least NCAA tournament. That bench is going to be there, and that's going to be a positive um, sign for them. So next they had the LA, USC, and UCLA coming up. USC game would be Saturday, and then UCLA game is Tuesday. Um, so first kind of big road trip for them. Last year they went to Oregon and Washington, won both games. Um, Now they're doing it a little bit different on the travel this year. Um, Most teams have come back last year. Purdue did come back after the games, but I think it was the Washington game or the Oregon, whichever game was second. They just came back after the game. They got back early in the morning on Sunday morning, like 2 a.m. or something like that. This year, since they're late games, East Coast times, the UCLA game is the last game. Since it's a 10 o'clock East Coast time tip, uh, Purdue has some data that probably has been shared throughout the league or throughout the country regarding red eye flights and recovery time for athletes. And since all these games are kind of in a semi-tight window where you got 2 days off and then you play again, when Purdue comes back from UCLA, um, technically they would have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then they play Illinois at home on Saturday. But now they're going to come back uh, in the morning after the UCLA game. So they play UCLA on Tuesday. They'll fly back Wednesday morning. They'll leave LA time and then get back into Purdue mid-afternoon Wednesday because the data has kind of showed them the recovery time is quicker when you travel that way. And the women are going to do the same thing. Women are going out to LA at the same time the men. They don't play on the same days, but they're going out at the same time and they're going to have the same travel schedule. When they come back, their last game would be at UCLA on Wednesday night, 10 o'clock Eastern time, and then they'll fly back Thursday morning. Now, they don't have a game till Sunday against Indiana at home. But anyway, be curious to see how it looks, how players respond. If you remember last year, Purdue came back off the Oregon-Washington trip or Washington-Oregon trip, and they played 2 days later. So they would have flown back, got back late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, 1 or 2 a.m. Then they played Ohio State on a Tuesday. Things were going well. And then boom, the legs gave out, the energy gave out, and then they ended up losing to Ohio State. And that was TV driven or streaming driven because NBC, Peacock wanted Purdue on that Tuesday after they come back from the West Coast. And then 2 days later, Michigan came to town. So the way the schedule was set up, they had a quick turnaround. I firmly believe that when you come back from the West Coast, or if you're a West Coast team and you go east and you come back, you need to have 3 days between games. I just think the Big Ten needs to find a way to make that work all the time. Now there's some cases this year with a couple West Coast teams when they fly east, they may only have 1 day prep because they were okay with that. Because these teams are spending like 5 or 6 days on the road when you necessarily don't need to do like when you go to LA, you're getting to LA when you get there, okay? You're playing a game, probably the next day. Then you got 2 days off, and then you play another game. It's not like you have to pick up and travel to go from UCLA to USC. It's like 20 miles. Now, in LA traffic, it's probably 20 hours. But the point is, you don't have to get on a plane and fly to the next destination. Oregon, Washington is a little different, where you've played Oregon, then you're going to Washington. You do have to get on a plane and uh, and travel up there. So the 1 day in between, some coaches don't want to do it. Other coaches are okay. It does cut out a day of travel and wear and tear and things like that. So, as we get deeper into this and you get more data as far as recovery time and all that, we'll see how that plays out uh, in the future. So yeah, the men hitting the road, still undefeated in the Big Ten. Nebraska's right up there as well. You got a Purdue Nebraska showdown coming up in February. A lot of games between now and then. Who knows who's still going to be undefeated. Purdue, when they come back, they're going to play Illinois, and then they're going to go to Indiana. So they've got a. This is kind of an important stretch for Purdue to be on the road out west, and then come back to play Illinois, which is hanging around the top of the league, and then going down to Bloomington to play Indiana. Now the Hoosiers are not. I don't think they're close to being Big Ten contender this year, but it is Purdue and Indiana, and you have to pay attention to that. And that would, Purdue then would be you come, at the end of kind of this stretch, and how do they feel physically and emotionally as you get to that. So kind of kind of a big stretch to watch for them, see how they handle that, and see what everybody else does in the Big Ten as well. Um, as far as women's basketball, they got a much needed win over Washington last weekend. Beat a ranked team for the first time in any venue since 2023. Got a win over a ranked team for the first time at Mackey Arena since 2019. And now they've won back-to-back Big Ten games for the first time since 2023. Um, it's a much needed win. They were 0-4 in the league. Now they have a two-game winning streak because before they beat Washington, they beat Wisconsin. Um, and again, as I've said before, and those that have followed this, this season not about getting to the top of the league or even the middle of the league. It's about getting in the Big Ten tournament. They only take 15 of the 18 to the Big Ten tournament. Purdue didn't make it last year, and the baseline goal is to get in the Big Ten tournament. Now that you have two Big Ten wins right now, and you still have some the Rutgers and the Penn State, the Northwestern left on your schedule, teams that you should beat, especially with two of those games being at home. Um, Purdue has put itself in a prime position to be one of the top 15 teams, and then not have to worry about it as you get deeper into the season. You need this win, you need that win. Again, if you can take care of those games against Rutgers and Penn State at home, you got Indiana coming up. Indiana's 0-7 in the Big Ten. Um, they seem to be floundering a lot. They're going to play them after they come back from the West Coast. If you get that win, now you're looking at a situation where this team could get 4 or 5 Big Ten wins, put itself above the fray, not have to worry about whether you're going to qualify or not, and then you're in the Big Ten tournament. It also pushes you closer to potentially a non-NCAA postseason tournament, the WBIT or the WNIT. Um, and then those are the things that are kind of ahead of this team right now. Now that they've won two in a row, should feel good about themselves. Um, Now they're going to go to the West Coast and probably lose 2 games. Now the USC game, which is first, um, it's a game they can compete in. USC doesn't have Juju Watkins. They've struggled somewhat. Athletically, they probably have an edge over Purdue, but they're kind of treading water a little bit. So if you can go out there and compete, play well, I would equate it to what they did against Nebraska at Nebraska, where um, they were in the game most of the time, but they didn't win, but they competed well, and there were encouraging signs coming out of that game, and I think that led to them beating Wisconsin and led to them knocking off Washington, even though they've come back from 13 points down in the first half and 8 points down with 3 minutes to go. But still, they, that's how I kind of view the USC game. If you can get a Nebraska type game where you're not demolished by halftime and you kind of hang in there, but you lose, I mean, no loss is good, but again, if you can come out of there with encouraging signs, I think that would be a step forward. They're going to go to UCLA and get beat badly. I mean, UCLA is good. They have a lot of weapons. They're big inside. They're big on the perimeter. They got depth. They got scoring power everywhere. Purdue is not going to win that game. I mean, they're just not. So if you put everything into USC and just play well, compete, give yourselves a chance, throughout the second half, for this team, that would be okay. But most likely they are going to come back from the West Coast 0-2 on this trip. But again, how does that 0-2 look? How does the game against USC look? Now, if they get beat badly by USC and then they'll get beat badly by UCLA, then okay, now you got to recover from that. Now you got Indiana coming in, you've got some other games coming up that you have to recover. And so we'll see how that plays out, but certainly a positive step for Katie Gerald's and her program right now to kind of get some momentum, build a little bit of momentum here, uh, get some confidence, and then kind of navigate the rest of the Big Ten season, see what you can achieve. But right now, I think the thing is, it's an opportunity for them to push this thing forward a little bit. And if you followed my Substack site, Mike Wabinski, I asked him last week about what he thought about the first half of the women's season, what he wants to see in the second half. Yeah, it was a generic answer, and it's not. It's a fair question, but we're in the middle of the season, so there's a lot to play out. He just said he wants to see progress. He wants to see a sense of direction, and I think that's common with the fan base. They want to see steps forward. They want to see um, this team have a direction, and they haven't had one really. I mean, in the last couple of years. I mean, who are they? What's their identity? So that's why you play out the whole season and see kind of what comes out here, and then at the end of the year, who's staying, who's going, all that kind of stuff. See how it all plays out. The one thing you want to do, you don't want to take big steps backward. And I don't count what's going to happen this week out in California. It's the when you play Indiana, when you play Rutgers, when you play Penn State, when you play Northwestern, you play Minnesota, you get maybe some of these games at home. How do you handle your business then? Purdue's not climbing to the middle of the Big Ten this year. 6-12 in the league is probably the high watermark, but 6-12 I think gets you to 500 overall at the end of the regular season, and then maybe you can win a game in a Big Ten tournament, and then put yourselves in a position to play in the postseason. And then the question becomes: is that enough? Is that enough progress based on the wins and losses? It probably is, but again, how does it look in all that? And one reason they play a little bit better. Some of it's who they're playing. But Katie changed the starting lineup. That seems to have worked. You put in players in different roles, different positions, and then you're bringing different players off the bench as well. So as of right now, um, that portion of their team is working well and playing well right now. If you go back to the Wisconsin game, Nia Smith, who was like 5 for 39 from 3-point range, she goes 4 or 6, and then Purdue hits 12 3-pointers, and you're able to beat Wisconsin the way that you did. Now, some of that dropped off a little bit against Washington, where the same players didn't maybe hit the threes, other than Madison Layden-Zay, who did become the career 3-point leader, passing Carissa McLaughlin. And she had hit 2 big threes against Washington when they were down 8 to kind of bring them back into the game. Um, so they're getting contributions from people that, you know, haven't really done it consistently all year, and they need Layden-Zay to really lead that charge. I mean, she's their most experienced player. Um, she's the most effective 3-point shooter. She knows where everybody should be. All these kind of things, and they need her. It's not her nature to be as assertive and aggressive as people want her to be, but she just needs to do what she can do in those situations to kind of help this team. And if you get everybody to fall in place behind her when she does these things, then you're looking at you're looking at some good positive steps throughout the regular season. Still don't have a true point guard. Layden Zay is playing the point. Tarday plays some point. Kiki Smith plays some point. So that's kind of the big void on this team is they don't have a true point guard because Taylor Feldman injured her back in the summer, has tried to play, but as I've mentioned before, probably going to be shut down for the rest of the year because she doesn't feel like she can be the best version of herself. She could probably play, but would she be um, the player that they recruited and watched out of Northern Arizona? Probably not. So we'll see what happens if she wants to come back, if she can come back, if she can get a redshirt year out of all this, and if Purdue looks at her as that point guard to lead them, and then whatever other holes they have in the lineup. And McKenna Layden, Madison's sisters, moved in the lineup. She shoots nothing but 3-pointers, um, and that's who she is. And she rebounds on the defensive end really well. She shoots 3-pointers. But all this, at least right now, is going to work. And again, don't get caught up in the results from the California trip as much. Just kind of see how they play and how they conduct themselves in those two games. But um, I know they'll feel better going out to the West Coast, knowing they have a 2-game winning streak, knowing the position that they're in. And if you come back and you beat Indiana, then you're getting to a point where you're going to be in the Big Ten tournament, and there's going to be no excuse why you shouldn't be in the Big Ten tournament because Rutgers and Penn State are really bad. I mean, they're bad teams. Penn State's giving up 96.6 points a game in 7 Big Ten games. I mean, that's horrible. I mean, that is just horrible. That's horrible defense. They had Wednesday night, they had 3 players score 20 points or more for Penn State, and they get beat because they give up 108 points. I mean, it's just, I, do I expect Penn State to shut people down? No. But I mean, 96.6 points. I mean, that's going to be like a huge Big Ten record, even though they don't keep those records, I don't think. And if they did, they wouldn't share them with you because it's too embarrassing. Rutgers in one of their games last week ended up shooting 20% from the field, and they needed to shoot 40% in the fourth quarter to shoot 20%. So if you think, Purdue's not where it should be, which I get it, but things could be a whole lot worse when you look at Penn State and Rutgers. Now they're going to play each other, and then one of them's going to get a win, but they're not going to get many wins beyond that. And that's why Purdue can be in a pretty good position to make the Big Ten tournament um, because it's hard for me to see one of these teams going winless. It could, but even if again, Penn State or Rutgers are going to have a win after they play each other, but that might be it. They're not going to get 4 wins. Indiana right now doesn't look like it's going to get 4 wins. Northwestern doesn't look like it's going to get 4 wins. So if you eliminate 3 teams, then 15 got to go. They're going to take 15 regardless. But if you look at it right now, if the season ended today type of thing, Rutgers, Penn State, and Indiana wouldn't go. Now, I do think Indiana eventually gets some wins to maybe crawl out of the basement, but um, it's the bottom of the league's not very strong right now, and that's part of the reason why they're not allowing everybody to go to the Big Ten tournament is the difference between the top and the bottom. And when you start factoring the data for the net, which the NCAA committee uses to seed and select teams, um, you'll be facing maybe not a top 4 team against the bottom of the league, but a team in the NCAA tournament mix. Would it hurt them at the end of the day to play the 18th place team in the league that has one Big Ten win would that hurt them in their net as you start looking at that going into the NCAA tournament? So that's the reason that the women are staying with 15 because they don't want to hurt the top of the league or the middle of the league by matching them up against teams that have really bad numbers when you get right down to it. So anyway, um, I think women's basketball people, feel okay right now. Again, long way to go. This team still has a very small margin for error, and um, but again, you get into late January, February here against some of these opponents, they need to really take care of business. Um, and we'll see how that plays out. On the football front, um, I haven't followed it like super closely, um, but I believe they have 24 transfers from the portal right now that have committed to them or signed with them. There's probably more coming. Um, Probably the most significant football news or information is they lost their kicker, Spencer Porath, and I'm not sure he even got in the portal. But anyway, he transferred to Notre Dame. So there had to be some backroom deals going on somewhere along the line. Because if you don't get in the portal, people don't know you're available unless your agent is out shopping you, or in this case, former Purdue special teams coach Marty Biaggi is at Notre Dame. Two and two sometimes does equal four. Um, and it's happening all over the place. I'm not picking on that, but Porath was one of the best offensive players Purdue had last year. I mean, he was 15 to 17 field goals, perfect on extra points. Um, did a good job a couple times keeping them in games by kicking field goals. And I know kicker they're out there. You can go find them, but when you have a good one, you want to keep them. Um, because if you watch the Illinois State, Montana State FCS championship game, you saw the value of a kicker or the lack of value of a kicker in that case. Wasn't all on the kicker's fault in that game. The snaps were not great, but point is, when you have a good one, you want to keep them, and you don't notice them until they do what they did in that game. So, um, kind of cost Brock's back a championship at the FCS level. Um, but anyway, that's probably the most significant news that has happened with football. I mean, they're adding players, but until you get the complete picture of who's who and where they fit and all this kind of stuff, it's kind of hard to make a judgment. And until you see them on the field, I mean, that's the other part. And they're getting some players from Power Four programs and all that. And as I've stated before, I'm not really um, all that enthralled with that. Um, I you don't want a full team of guys from the MAC or Group Five teams or all that, but those are the players that really are going to work their ass off to prove themselves because they want to be on the big stage. They want to be in the limelight. They want to see how they stack up, not only for them right now, but also for future. I mean, watch the NFL playoffs. How many guys are coming from Group Five and lower level division football, and they're on NFL rosters. But this is an opportunity to prove yourself by playing against Big Ten competition and all that kind of stuff. You want players that are hungry, not not that just want to get paid, but um, that are hungry. And the rare breed of college athletes nowadays is, first of all, are you hungry to prove yourself? And if you can find one that's hungry, they want to prove themselves, they're going to get paid. End of story. But what you don't want is this guys that want to get paid and that's it. And you have to weed through that. You have to sift through that. It's a quick dating process every time you're looking at players in the portal. Um, it's what makes the sport and college athletics in general so toxic that, you know, all this, you know, all this stuff's going on. You got betting scandals, you got um, a lot of other stuff just that's going on, and people suing for 6 years of eligibility. It's like no one gave these players lifetime appointments to play college athletics. At some point it ends. All right, it has to end. Uh, just because you can doesn't mean you should. But the NCAA cannot, their rules cannot stand up in the courts. They get poked holes. Um, the best scenario is going, 5 years, you know, play 5 years and that's it, be done. But then you're going to have lawsuits from people that didn't get that opportunity and they got robbed and they feel like they should go back to school and play because as they can because it's quick money. You can sue anybody and not have to work. But I mean, it's beyond borderline ridiculous now. Just every lawsuit that's waiting to happen, like you've been wronged. No, you haven't been wronged. You played 4 years. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to play 4 years. You get an education, you get 4 years. Okay, then you move on to the next phase of your life. But you know, no lawyers and agents, they're all clinging to athletes, to get their money. And it would be really fascinating to find out. Okay, you see the dollar figures that, okay, the Washington quarterback, for example, he's getting $4 million in revenue share and NIL, fine. But how much of that 4 million is going to his agent or his lawyer or whatever? How much are those guys really coming out ahead in this whole deal? And you can say, well, 4 million, yeah, if he clears, 3 million, then he's still in good shape. True. But what about the guy that doesn't make 4 million? What about the guy that only makes 1 million or a half a million or whatever? I mean, a lot of that money is just fees to your agent or to your lawyer or to somebody else that's taking care of you. Everybody's got their hand in your pocket. So are you really coming out ahead at the end of the day? Because you can't fight these battles on your own. I mean, you just can't. So you need help. You need an agent. That's how you can move from place to place because an agent, because you don't have direct contact with the school, but the agent does. And all the backroom stuff, all that, it happens somewhat in pro sports, but it's also collective bargaining and other things, rules that go on. This is just wide open and, it's a complete mess. I mean, it just really is. But, we keep showing up. Fans keep showing up. Purdue had its 100 consecutive sellout at Mackey Arena. People keep showing up. Now, Purdue's the outlier in this whole thing because I don't think they're doing things the way that other people are doing. But I can't, you really believe that Barry Odin hadn't lined up deals for football players before they got in the portal? Of course he did. They had either people reaching out to them, they're reaching out to agents. I mean, they're doing the same thing everybody else does. They're just doing it at a different scale because they don't have the money per se that other schools have or the NIL budget that other schools have to make the big splash. Uh, but this is the game that you got to play now. And I still think they need a quarterback to make a big splash, by the way. I'm not getting off that. So, all right. Well, that was a rant that came out of nowhere. And other than that, I think that's about it. They've changed the transfer portal for basketball to get in. It's after the championship games. Last year, it was like in the middle of the NCAA tournament, which made absolutely no sense whatsoever. I mean, you're playing in the NCAA tournament and you're trying to determine how many of your players are going to go in the portal. Same, I mean, college football is different because there's an academic component to all this. Um, because you in first semester, you're playing in the college football playoff, blah, blah, blah. Then second semester classes are starting. Coaches want their players there so they can be involved in winter workouts and then spring football. And that just messes everything up. But you have the academic. Yeah, if we didn't have academics, it'd be great. But academics are part of this component. Um, so it's but the basketball has done the right thing after their championship games, portal opens, blah. But deals are going to be made well before that because seasons are going to end for teams. Players are going to want to transfer. Their agents are going to line up deals. So it's an artificial date um, because work is being done right now because there's players out there that know they're not coming back. Coaches know that they don't want those players back. And they've got people working on their behalf to find them a new location that's going to get them paid. So You can have all the rules, the windows that you want, but uh, it's not going to change all the, the sad part of it is the people that really get rich off this are the agents and the lawyers. Um, the players, yes, they're getting some money, but a lot of that's going elsewhere. A big chunk of their money's going elsewhere. And but this is what they wanted. This is what players wanted. This is what everybody wanted. And this is what you get. So as you play around in the mud and you get dirty, you got no one to complain to but yourself. Because they wanted the same freedoms that the coach had. Coach has a contract, but he can leave at any time, pay the buyout, so on and so forth. Players wanted the same movement. Well, my coach can leave. Why can't I? Well, now you can. You can. But there's a penalty for that when you sign an agreement um, and all those things that come with it. And you're not, as a player, you're not going to read the fine print, but you got to hire somebody to read the fine print for you, and you got to pay them to read the fine print for you, and hope they have your best interests at heart. And a lot of dollar figures are being promised that are not true, just trying to get people in the door. And then you can tweak it and do whatever you want once they get here, once they sign. But yeah, it's a mess. And just from my standpoint, I don't enjoy covering that part of it anymore. And I try not to cover that part of it as much as I can because I don't have to. In my former life, I kind of had to. I don't have to now. I pick and choose the things I want to do with that and what I want to write about and talk about. But um, it's zapped some of the joy out of it. And I don't know how these people that are still in the business and need to be in the business and need to have a job and how they manage all that and also cover their team and program and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, I'm getting on a different. I've switched train tracks and gone a different direction, so I apologize. I think that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Has Been podcast, and it is I am a has been. I get it. I understand it, and be back probably next week. Probably wait till after the basketball teams finish up their West Coast trip. Um, probably probably back around the same time next week. Maybe we'll have a better understanding of where things are at football wise from the portal, who's going to be on the roster and all that kind of stuff. But we'll know kind of where basketball stands, both men and women, as we get to the end of January. All right. Well, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. Um, I guess if there's a way to like this or give it a thumbs up, it's up to you. Um, I don't know how that works. I need somebody to help me with those things, but you know what? I push a button, it's record, I talk, and then I hit stop, and then I upload it, and that's kind of the extent of what I do. Um, but yeah, I probably need people, but then I'd probably have to pay people to do it, and I don't want to. I don't even charge people. So where am I going to get the money? All right, go Bears. Maybe another miracle finish coming up against the Rams in the divisional playoffs. A win would be nice, but it's been a fun year. Sugar high of a season continues. We'll see how long before the crash comes, but maybe it won't. Maybe this is one of those years where the crash doesn't come. All right, have a good day. Thanks. We'll talk to you later.